In the course of posting comments and making videos that are critical of Muhammad and Islam generally, I have received the accusations of being a racist, bigot, Islamophobe, hater, Nazi, and other similar unflattering monikers. I have also encountered the accusation that applying modern morality to Muhammad is invalid because he existed in another time and place. I admit there are certain dangers in applying modern cultural expectations on those who lived in the 7th century. Having sexual relations with immature females just wasn't the taboo it is today in Western countries. Are we just being ethnocentric if we say that it's wrong? Can we only note that their ethics were or are different from ours and leave it at that? For the most part, we are doing a disservice to people of the past and other cultures by judging them through our own culture's morality. We misunderstand them by judging them out of context. We may make the mistake of seeing Isaac Newton as a nutty occultist, or Thomas Jefferson as merely a slave owner, and thus belittle their other significant contributions. Muhammad's legacy is undeniable. As his followers so often like to point out, the astrophysicists, Michael Hart's ranking of historically important people. Hart judged Muhammad as the single most significant person in history to date. Within Islam, he is held up as the model for all people to emulate. And so, unlike Newton or Jefferson, we are asked to apply Muhammad's example even today. It is for this reason that I feel we are within our rights to evaluate him by today's standards of morality. Our personal opinions may be expressed legitimately, even though the Prophet lived long ago in a very different culture, because Muhammad, as a moral example, is extended through all time and across all cultures. We are further moved to evaluate Muhammad's example because the permissibility of evaluation has been opposed with violence and intimidation. Speech that does not flatter Muhammad, regardless whether it is factual or not, has been regarded by many supporters of Islam as not constructive at best, or blasphemous hate speech, worthy of a death sentence at worst. Where we can, we ought to resist this point of view. How? By continuing to exercise our freedom of speech. If I say I think the Prophet Muhammad was wrong to have sex with a 9-year-old, is it right to call me a hater of Islam? Not necessarily. Let me give you an example. My grandmother is a good woman. I'm a little biased, yes. However, she often complains about the younger generation's lack of morality, drugs, sex before marriage, homosexuality. Even though I love her, I have to admit that her morality would not fit well among my peers. In that context, she would be immoral for condemning people for being themselves. She would be immoral for being intolerant and judgmental. I would be right to have a balanced evaluation of her as a person. I would be right to criticize her position. As I am within my rights to criticize Muhammad as a moral example, and from that criticism I can construct a more balanced view of him. Expressing myself on this no more reflects a hatred of Muhammad than my criticism of my grandmother did. Does it mean I hate Muslims? Of course not. However, it is difficult not to react to apologists and Islamophiles who oppose a balanced view and free discourse on Muhammad and Islam generally. The belief that freedom of speech is a moral good and a protection against tyranny is at the foundation of Western society. The Islam of Muhammad is not compatible with this. And further, the Islam that dogmatically clings to the Prophet as a moral example beyond reproach is not compatible. So long as this is the case, I feel justified, perhaps even morally compelled, to draw light to these beliefs. This is why I can't just leave Muhammad and Islam alone. Some have said to me, who cares if some people believe he was nearly perfect and Islam is a religion of peace? Why can't you just be more tolerant? If tolerance means we cannot criticize what others hold as sacred, then a door of opportunity is open for those who would abuse this free pass of tolerance without evaluation. This applies no matter what the topic is. If businesses were free to make any claims they wanted about their product, don't you think this would be abused? Wouldn't people cry out for some protection against this unethical practice? Tolerance is a good thing if coupled with balanced evaluation. But if in the cause of tolerance we mute the criticism of belief systems that are themselves opposed to tolerance, we have failed. We have failed in an ethical way. Freedom requires maintenance. Censorship is a form of oppression. Self-censorship, then, is a moral failure. Freedom of speech protects all members of society, even those who are offended by it. How so? Please indulge me in this thought experiment. Imagine, the Hindus are right. Of course they are the oldest religious tradition, and they bet on more gods, so this seems reasonable to me. So, imagine your spirit is readying itself for another journey through life, and you've got some good karma, so a diva explains, since you were so good last lifetime, you are being given a choice. You will be a human, of course, but the challenge is to select the best sort of society to achieve nirvana. You may choose either to be free or dogmatically devoted to a belief system. You may live in the dogmatic Hindu society Vedaland, in which all agree with the righteousness of Hinduism, and there is no criticism. There's just perfect peace. They have the true path, and they make no apologies for it. If you end up in Vedaland, you are virtually guaranteed nirvana. But you may, with equal chance, end up in a dogmatic society of a wrong religion. You could end up in Watchtower Land, Mormania, or many other false paths. The other option is to choose a society that allows for freedom of expression, pluralism, and all religions may be practiced. In your reincarnation, you will not remember this conversation with the diva. You will just have to hope for the best. With nirvana on the line, which would you choose? The long shot of landing in the society that dogmatically practices the true religion, or a society that allows freedom of speech and religious practice? Without being free to evaluate and criticize, we are at risk of developing a society of the wrong path. Beliefs are not perfected in dogma. They are dead. If your belief system is sound, it makes no sense to oppose all criticism of it. The criticism would only serve to reinforce its validity, if it's in doubt. However, if they are unsound or harmful, wouldn't you want the society within which you live to be free to evaluate it? At least in that scenario, you have a corrective process and a hope of making progress toward a better world. I take criticism about as well as the average human. Sometimes I do not welcome it, but I have to say it has been helpful for me. Getting an outside opinion is sometimes the distasteful medicine we need in order to make progress as people and societies. I welcome criticism, but not without some fear. Hateful critics don't usually help much, and it's easy to ignore their opinions. Brief criticism, without any rationale, is similarly easy to dismiss. It is thoughtful, polite criticism that is the most fear-inspiring. It may cause me to reevaluate my beliefs. It may change or destroy some of them. It may cause me to change. And if it's correct, the change would be for the better.